Hi, everyone, and welcome to another stream of Beyond the Headlines with the Shills. Today, we have a really wonderful show for you today. We have the New Vision Renewable Energy, I'm going to say team for now, but specifically, we have the CEO, and we're going to start with him first. New Vision they make solar units, which are also run on a battery, and they give them to Ukraine because we all know the power problems there. And I'm going to go to Rustin right away since we're limited on time. And thank you so much for being here. And he's going to tell us how the whole project got started and his involvement. And go ahead, Rustin.
Very good. Well, it was great to be invited. We're in West Virginia. Our co-founder, his name was John Prussia. He was a refugee from Czechoslovakia. So when he was a boy, the Russians did the very same thing, and they overthrew, countries in Eastern Europe. He ended up living under communist oppression and for multiple years. And when he became a young man, he escaped, and he ended up in Philippi, West Virginia, where I live. And we became dear friends. John, as most refugees, was incredibly resourceful, living under communist oppression. His father was a Baptist pastor, and his father got thrown in prison for 7 years for singing Christmas carols in public. So John was a very poor, boy, and he learned how to take broken things and make them work. When he came to the U.S., he's a genius, smartest guy I've ever met. He made his own solar panels from scratch, and I'm involved with community development work. And so John started teaching our little community that has always been kind of struggling economically, how to make solar energy work. And then one of the products that we produce as a nonprofit is a solar powered light. We call it the Ray of Life, and it's about 1,000 lumens. We manufacture our own batteries as well. We put it in a kit, and we started getting lights to developing countries around the world where there was no electricity. Over 1 billion people have no electricity, and probably didn't have in mind that, wars would occur and would blow up the power grid. And John passed away about a year or so ago. And Dave has been a good friend of ours. And we found a way to connect our lights to help families in the Ukraine, and in the spirit of being helpful. We're excited as an organization to put a really good product together, and we source it and send it as a kit. And those kits are being made by groups around the country, and Dave and his great connections have found a way to get them to Ukraine. So we're a small group, but we're excited to play a small role in helping families that are really in kind of terrible place.
So you were doing things around the world. So did you find out that Ukraine needed these units yourself, or was that through Dave? How did that all get started?
Well, you just turn on the television and you find out that bombs are blowing stuff up. Obviously, they blow up the power grid, and that made us aware. But it was kind of ironic. On our first batch, we made 4,000 lights, and they're in 39 countries. We only had 10 units left. And Dave called us, and Dave said, "Hey, do you guys still make lights?" He was the one that made us incredibly aware. And so we sent him the 10 lights, and he got them over to families. We always want to know if the products are helpful before you start loading yourself up. And the word came back that they were incredibly helpful. And we've been excited about what Dave and a whole bunch of people have been doing to make that happen.
So how many countries are you actually involved in sending these lights to? When I read your website, it was a phenomenal amount of places. Do you have a number?
Yeah, Ukraine is actually our 40th country. And we particularly work with church and community groups that travel and go into the developing world. And many of the places people go to help out are people with places without power. And so we're just a partner with them. And so literally, our partners are the one that take them there. We just make sure and get a good product to them.
One of the things that I was really impressed with when I was reading on your website, that the lights are doing wonderful things for everywhere around the world who don't have power, but it also benefits the youth in your area. Can you tell us a little bit about how the youth are involved?
Well, I think, the best form of economic and community development is being productive. And so one of the things that John was good at is creating products that would be valuable in the world. We work with a lot of kids that West Virginia has the highest percentage of youth that are in foster care in the country. So we're always trying to find kids that need some positive momentum. And when you can make a product and you have pride in what you produce and it works, especially when you send it to the gray zone of the Ukraine, we have a lot of young people in our own county now that are more globally aware, and they're the ones that provide some of the skill and technical labor.
That's so impressive to me because let me hang on one second. I think looks like we have a video. Okay. It looks like Dick was testing a video there. So can you give us an idea of some of the challenges that you faced with getting these units out there? Is it supplies, making the batteries, logistics? What have you run into?
Well, we originally had purchased a lot of the components in China, and then we assemble them here. And particularly some of the batteries we got weren't up to our standards. So John started designing. We make our own battery now. So there was a time of day that lithium cells were harder to get, and we had to get them from China. But now we have a wonderful supply chain, and we can get them delivered to our front door. That was helpful. When COVID happened, all the supply chains in the world got kind of messed up. And we have a lot of our mold is made in Charlotte, North Carolina. So that's local. So about 70% of our product is U.S. assembled and made. And the connection we have to get the other cords and wires in China, we have a good relationship. So there's less challenge. Money is the biggest challenge. Our product, we charge enough. It's $125 to sponsor a unit. And that, gets it to the shipper and gets it to the hands of a family. And the big challenge is we're not creating a product where we as an organization make money. We just hope to not go broke doing it. And so we never have enough resources to do more lights.
And that brings us, to our viewers, if you see the link that we have pinned at the top of the chat, that is a direct donation link. And if you would like to donate today, again, it's about $125 baseline just to get a unit produced or the parts produced, and then they're packaged together, and wonderful people like Dave get them out to different groups so that they can do the assembly, so the assembly doesn't cost anything for them, and then they get the boxes all gathered up, and they get them in a shipping container, and they send them off. So Rustin, we have just a couple more minutes with you. This is a surprise question to you. Can you tell us one story that would be heartwarming and the best experience you've ever heard of, whether it's Ukraine or another country, with your lights?
Absolutely. Well, the one that comes to mind is one of the boys in foster care. He kind of grew up in a really terrible family, and just life had always been hard for him. And when I was making a light, I was going on a trip to Africa. So I made him make the light and autograph the back of it. And I took a picture of the light and him standing there. And when I took it to a family in Kenya, that a mother with three children, I made her take a picture with the light and turn it around. And so Anthony could see that it was his light that went. And when I got back to the United States, I remember sitting across the table from him and getting to have that conversation. And I could say, if it wasn't for you, this family here wouldn't have a light tonight. And I can remember it kind of touched him like inside of his life, because most of his life people had thought about him as a throwaway kid or somebody that couldn't do anything good. And that story over and over again, as a reminder, it just gets into the hands of people that need them. When I hear about, families in the Ukraine living in dark basements, and the one that touched my heart the most was how important it is to be able to charge your cell phone. And one of the soldiers had communicated that he really needs to talk to his family every night to let them know that he's alive and okay. And the Ray of Life is able to help that communication happen by keeping the cell phone charged. And, for that reason, we're going to do as much as we can.
So your units go to both soldiers and families, right?
We go anywhere in the gray zone that they can be helpful. And Dave maybe knows more about that, but that was just one story of a family that was separated because obviously the men are fighting in the front and their children want to know every day, is dad okay? And if you can't talk to people like that, that just adds another layer of trauma and stress to the whole arrangement.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you so much for being here. We've reached our time, unless you can spend longer, but I really, really appreciate all of your input and your time and the story that you gave to our audience. Love to have you back in the future if you'd like to. And, I'm going to try to get the word out myself. We have the link, and I can also give your website out and everything like that. So thank you for everything you're doing. So much appreciated. And our community appreciates it too. Our YouTube community is this huge group across different channels of Ukraine supporters. So it's just wonderful. Thank you, Rustin.
Thank you for helping tell the story. And thanks to everybody that plays a role. Thanks, Dave, for your role in helping this happen. Have a great day.
Thank you, Rustin.
Bye.
All right, now we have Dave. So a little story about how I met Dave. I was introduced to Dave because of Alina, and you all know the show that I did a few weeks ago before the tornadoes took me offline. Alina and Martha were on, and they have an incredible group of people that they're in touch with. And Alina texted me and she says, "Hey, would you be interested in talking to this guy who has been to Ukraine? He's involved in getting lights to people where all the power is out." And I said, "Absolutely." And again, I was so blessed because I texted Dave and he answered. So, Dave, could you give our viewers a little bit of your background? And again, we had a wonderful conversation on the phone. And so tell us how you got involved and your experience in Ukraine in the beginning of the invasion so our viewers can get an idea of who you are.
Sure, we're kind of sharing my phone, but I'm in the room here with 4 other people. Paul and Louise Evanson from Thousand Oaks, California, Pastor Tom Murray and John Malang from Lutzen, Minnesota, where we just completed a build of 40 Ray of Life kits that will eventually get over to Ukraine. So I work for an NGO that's located in the country of Romania. Our headquarters are in Western Romania. And when the war began, it was I knew that well, in my heart, it's like, what can I do? How can I help with this? Is there anything I can do from Duluth, Minnesota? And I had a friend, his name is Joel Burkham, and Joel runs an organization located in Council Bluffs, Iowa, for God's Children International. And Joel has been working in the country of Romania and Moldova, the Republic of Moldova, for almost 30 years. And I knew, our connection, New Horizons Foundation, we're in the west side of Romania. And even being that far away from the border, our executive director made a trip to the border to evacuate some staff from a different NGO. But as far as housing people and providing direct, immediate service, we're just too far away. So I sent an email to my friend Joel because of where he's placed and because I know the man's heart. And I just said, hey, what's going on? Are you doing anything in Ukraine? And about 10, 12, 14 days later, I'd have to look at the calendar to be certain, but I was actually in Ukraine. And, we made a couple visits to a couple different communities in Western Ukraine, but I also spent 3 days at the border in Isacha, Romania, helping people off the ferry across the Danube, fleeing Ukraine, and just helping people carry their bags and get through the customs and then into the processing tent. and from there they went to wherever. Some people had plans, but most didn't. And interestingly, the folks that I saw coming off the ferry were had a very different look than the people that I've seen in the rural villages that we've worked in eastern Ukraine. So that was trip number one. And after that trip, and we made a couple visits to different communities within Ukraine. After that trip, you do a lot of reflection. I mean, I've had a lot of experiences in my life, and that one I had to create a new category for. But I started thinking, and then it was, coming towards summer, and the effort of the Russians to eliminate the infrastructure, and I just wondered. I was swimming one day, and I wondered if Rustin was still building lights. So I called him, and that began the process that led to him flying to Minnesota and traveling with 10 lights that he had mailed me already. And we took them up to our church in Two Harbors, Minnesota, and we put 10 lights together. And about a week later, I flew over to Ukraine with them and took 4 to Odessa, and 6 went to Bakhmut. That we got very strong support for in terms of, this is very helpful. So we kind of put our heads together, Rustin and I, and I made those trips. Actually, the first trip I was with Joel, the second trip I was with Joel, but took a little bit of a detour, and we figured out, how long is it going to take to get some of the components. And then I started making phone calls, and eventually, with what I would term a miracle, we found a shipper out of Isanti, Minnesota, which is less than 2 hours from my house, who has to this point sent over 25 shipping containers to Ukraine that various things have been distributed throughout Ukraine. And Lee, hand in hand logistics, was very happy to be involved with this. So almost all of the lights that we've sent over to this point have gone through hand in hand. And some of them have gone with Midwest Mission, which is out of Illinois, but most of them have gone. And this is actually the light. I'll just show you this here real quick. You can see it. It's got 3 LED strips. I think you can see that. Blue sky over sunflowers on the back. We have a little QR code that that Alina actually helped me with, trying to line this up right, that she helped me she translated, so it's in Ukrainian, and they can bring that up on their phone to see how to put it together. So it's been a process, but once I started traveling around to various places throughout Iowa, and Minnesota, with this shipment that's on its way to Montreal to eventually get over to the port of Gdynia, Poland, that we'll have over 500 lights in country, which sounds great. But one of my friends said, "Can you send 1 million?" So 1 million is a little much for my brain to process right now, but unfortunately, we're going to keep doing this as long as they're needed. And we just, are looking for partners to come alongside to sponsor them so that we can get them over to Ukraine, because we have a way to get them over there. And my contacts in Ukraine in various places, Kyiv and Irpin, and mainly in Zaporizhzhia with the Mariupol Chaplains Battalion, they actually get them into the hands of people, which I was able to participate in March, to pull them out of the box and hand them to Ukrainian, which was pretty impactful, because every one of those lights was put in a box in my basement in Duluth. And the appreciation and what we believe, the hope, that these little green boxes can bring is very strong, and it's opened up so many doors. And I don't know that I'll get into the other things that this has kind of brought about, but we're going to keep doing it as long as we need to, as Rustin said.
So can you, on the box, can you hold the box up again? Just to give our viewers a little idea. So where does the battery go in that box? And what we know the size of the box, so the battery isn't that big.
The battery attaches by Velcro to the back of the lens, which is a piece of cardboard, recycled political signs, nonpartisan, I might add. And then the shiny paper on the front was donated by 3M. And then the LED strips attached to the shiny paper. The shiny paper has you attach it to the political sign, and then you attach the LED strips and the 4-cord splitter hooks into the battery port, and then you plug in the 3 LED lights. And you have what Rustin termed 100 lumens, and this will go for, if the battery's fully charged, it will run these 3 strips for 21 hours.
How much area does that light up then? Is it enough for a room, or?
It's not going to light up a big room, but it throws a lot of light. Like the square footage, I'm not sure, but it's very useful in the basements I've been in the basement, and I've been in the basements that didn't have the light, but I've also been in dark rooms where we, turned the light on to see what it did, and it does a lot. So it would light up a small room, but it throws a lot of light for a short distance, and then throws a little bit of light beyond that. And then we also have a USB.
I was just going to ask you, where on the unit is a cell phone charger? Because light is one thing, but the cell phones are literally people's connection to each other. So that goes into nice.
Plugs into the fourth part of the 4-cord splitter, and you can see the little red lights on. That means it's plugged in, and you can plug your cell phone in. Well, I need a different attachment. So you can plug your cell phone into the USB, and it'll charge your cell phone.
Mm-hmm. That could be life-saving too for people.
Well, Alina's the one that clued me into the fact that she said the first thing we do in the morning when we get up is call home. She's from Poltava, and the first thing we do when we get up in the morning is call home to make sure everybody in our family is safe. And if their cell phone doesn't work in Ukraine, they don't know if they're safe. So it's a big deal to have a cell phone charger.
That's an amazing little unit. And just for our viewers to go back, we do have the link at the top of the chat. If you'd like to make a direct donation, those units, just to get all of the parts and pieces together so that Dave can get them to different groups to assemble, it's a baseline of $125. And everyone knows that in Ukraine, just what was it, on Friday or Saturday night, the electrical or the grid got hit again. And it's amazing how what's the word, just Russia is just so intent on destroying all of their grid. It just, for me, I get upset about it. But knowing that there's something out there to help people is really important. So again, if you could find it in your heart to donate something, and please, we don't see the donations live because they are direct to this fund. If you want to put a little note in the chat that you donated, that would be great. And then Dick will let me know. So Dave, could you, one of the things that people want to know is how do they get involved? How do we get a group together? You said it's mostly through churches. So if somebody's not involved in a church, or if they are involved in a church, how do they, get the information and say, hey, we can put some units together? How does all that work?
Yeah, I'm gonna direct the camera to John Malang and Pastor Tom Murray. I think they can kind of get a little closer, so you see both of them, and they can maybe answer that question, and I'll fill in any blanks necessary at the end.
Nice to meet you, Pastor. Nice to meet you, John. Thanks for being here. So everybody, just so you know, they just got done, this group in the Pastor's Lutzen Church, they just got done putting these lights together. So if you want to tell us a little bit about that and your story, it would be great.
Well, my wife heard Dave talk on WTIP, a local radio station, about Ukraine and these lights, and she came home and told me. I said, oh my gosh, I've been wanting to do something for Ukrainians, and like a lot of people feel that way. That's what can we do? What can we do? So I called Dave, and he said, yeah, they're $125 a piece. And so we spent, I don't know, at our church, we spent 2 or 3 months, and we raised enough to buy 40 lights. And Dave came and instructed, and everybody really liked the feeling of contributing, and it was really fun chatter. And we've got 40 some people down here, and they're helping each other, peel tape off and making sure they heard the directions right. And people really want to do something, and that's how it got started here at our church anyways. And you,
yeah,
Tom?
I think for us, John brought this to us, and every month we do what we call a mission of the month, where we support, we raise money for local charities. Sometimes they're national, sometimes international. And John brought this to us, and it just felt like a no-brainer to us, both to do something positive for what is an obvious need that people have. But a secondary thing for us is it was a chance to learn about it. And so there's the physical part of this, actually creating lights that could go directly to where they were needed. But it also was a good opportunity for us to learn about what's happening in Ukraine, especially now where there's so many other things happening here in this country that it kind of falls off people's radar. And so for us, it was just a no-brainer. And so we did it back in January, and then I'll turn it over to our other guests, but we had an opportunity with a church that is a couple thousand miles away from us, through just various connections that we have, to get together today and build 40 more.
So I got an email from a woman named Louise Evanson, who's sitting to my left, and we're going to move over to them. Paul and Louise are from Thousand Oaks, California, and they're the church that sponsored, so to date, 137 light kits, and we've put together 70 so far, and there's plans for others, but I'm going to let Paul and Louise talk about their experience.
Paul and Louise, thank you so much for being with us today. And thank you for flying from California all the way to Minnesota. I'm from the Midwest too, so I know that area. And again, thank you so much. So tell us a little bit about your story.
When I first heard about this the first week in January, it kind of captured my imagination. And so I texted Pastor Tom Murray and I said, I can't bring an egg casserole to church on Sunday when you're assembling solar light kits, but I sure would like to know more about this. And Pastor Murray connected us with Dave Nonemacher, and Dave and Paul and I have had numerous Zoom calls and phone conversations. So I was able to understand the whole process of how kits are made, where they are made, who makes them, how they get shipped, who's shipping them, what happens when they get into Ukraine, who's delivering them. So those were all questions we had. And Dave was able to supply us with all these answers. I'm the chair of the Global Ministries team at our church in Thousand Oaks, California. And I went to them and I said, I've heard about this and it really has captured my heart and also my imagination. What do you think? And they said, learn more. We're behind you. And I said, who'd like to help me on this team? If we do this here at Ascension, 7 people's hands went up instantly. I think this is something that has really touched people's hearts and their energies. So I was able to work with Dave. He sent me a sample. He said, you realize that this kit is not going to go to Ukrainian now because you're using it. And I said, I believe in the multiplier effect. If I have one and I can show and demonstrate it, I think people will understand it more and will be more responsive in their gifts. And after more conversation, we found out that it's the shipping within the United States is so costly that Dave and I and Paul agreed that we would be raising money for solar light kits and others would be assembling them in Minnesota because it just was more economical that way. Well, that's worked really well. I think to this point, our congregation has raised almost $20,000 for solar light kits and for water purification kits that are also distributed with every solar light kit. So today, the Lutheran Church, good people, assembled kits that were funded by the people of Ascension Lutheran Church in Thousand Oaks, California. So we think the circle has been made and connected to help Ukrainians.
That's an amazing story. And some of the words that you use today are things that our Ukraine fundraising community uses all the time, trying to win hearts and minds and inform people about how they can help. A lot of people live in areas where they don't have community groups and things like that. We do encourage donations. And sometimes I think people are like, well, I wonder what's happening with my money and what's going on. And I love your organization because it is so transparent. Like we have organizations that we fundraise for, like NAFO for trucks, and there's many YouTubers that are doing things out there. But that's so wonderful about New Vision and the Ray of Life units and the fundraising, because the $125 that per unit that people raise, it does go directly. And Dave is accessible. Like you said, you talked to him, you got the information, he sent you a unit. And I think that down, shortly here, hopefully there would be some group that hears this stream and say, hey, I want to get involved. I have a youth group. I have a community group. I have a church group, something like that. So your story is wonderful. And I just love the words you used, hearts and minds and hearts. And again, full circle, because it is, I have friends that over in Ukraine that are volunteering. I have friends in Ukraine. And for me, this is all I do. I not sit on YouTube. I work on YouTube and help get donations. And it's really something that I see. I'm going to donate. I see where my money's going to. We have I wanted to say, does your husband have something to say, or is he just an observer? Tell us your story and how you feel about this.
One component kind of brings us back to full circle with Rustin. One of the real attractive components of this whole project is the hope that is being built in the lives of the foster kids that are graduating out of the foster program. People have decided to give to this partly because of the scope of the ministry of it, because it's not only giving light to people in darkness in Ukraine, but it's also bringing hope and light to the kids when they graduate. Rustin has shared with Dave and then he with us. The statistics are that these kids, many of them end up on the streets if they don't have some guidance and encouragement to get into some profession, to find the good housing, to find the support of a community that cares for them.
And skills.
and the skills that they can build in their own lives building these kits. So that was a real selling point for a lot of our friends who said, "Yep, I'm in. I want to give to this."
Yeah, and just to clarify, the pre-assembly happens in West Virginia by the youth that have aged out of the foster care system, and then the final assembly is what we did here today.
Yeah.
So it's a bit of a process, but very, very much a value-added component.
I don't have the statistics in front of me, but I have a friend who grew up in West Virginia, and the stories that he told about the businesses and the factories and the mining that has gone out, that have left the area, opportunities. We think of, oh, well, they have to find something. These communities are really struggling. The kids don't even have the money to get out of these places. And the drug use in West Virginia, it's not just being on the streets, it's the amount of drug use. I mean, it's like 80s, 90% that you will get taken in by bad influences. And that is so impressive too, that it's also helping something in the United States. It's all encompassing. When I saw West Virginia, I was like, wow. And it would be very easy for someone to take this project out of that area, but the fact that they're staying and doing this is really impressive. So Dave, one question for you. Can you tell us about your experience when you went to Ukraine to hand out these lights? And for our audience, we do have a video that we're going to play for you, but I'd like to hear Dave's firsthand experience of, like, you touched on it a little bit, but tell us how that was for you.
Well, I've been over there 4 times, and I guess I would say they were each different. But just to contrast a July trip of 2023 to a March experience of 2024 in the same places, and very much more highly impacted by bombs. There was a lot more destruction, and this was in southeast Ukraine, based out of Zaporizhzhia. And going into the rural villages, which was, we spent our time in Zaporizhzhia, and the community of Kharkiv, which was not a rural village, but a city, was basically destroyed. And then the villages from Kharkiv closer to the front, there was a lot of destruction there, but the reality of that people had no access to anything. They had no access to services. They had no access to markets. They had no access to heating, fuel. There's just no access. So being able to just play a small part in, for a short time, getting them some goods and some supplies that were needed and necessary, and in a couple instances, medicine that was needed, that, Grandma Nina is not going to drive her car to Zaporizhzhia because she doesn't have a car and because she can't. So it's very unsettling, and it was extremely emotional. But also being able to take a Ray of Life kit, and this was in a small rural village outside of Zaporizhzhia again, and actually pull it out of a box that had been packed in my basement, and it had been assembled. In fact, the lights some of the lights that I passed out in March very well could have been lights that were produced here in the basement of Lutz and Lutheran back in January, because it was that shipment that I had a couple boxes of. We had 8 boxes all told, and I had access to 2 of them. And it could have very well been a Lutzen light, could have been the light that Pastor Tom built. I mean, we don't know. But being able to take that light that I always, and I you know, we were a little rushed today, so I didn't do my full spiel, my full dog and pony show. But I always say, you know, you're touching this, you're touching this, and your fingerprints are on it, and your DNA is on it. And when I pull it out of a box, or Vadim pulls it out of a box, or Vasily pulls it out of a box, or Oleg, and he passes it to a Ukrainian, it's going from you into the basement and to a Ukrainian. It's not going through 14 different things. It's almost a direct connection. And there's an incredible power in that, I believe. And the fact that people are able to put these together with their own hands, and then they're going to Ukraine. And I had the privilege of passing some of them out. So you know, the people that I saw, again, I had mentioned this, they were very different than the people I saw getting off the ferry. These are the people who can't get out. Some, I think, you know, obviously choose to not get out, but some can't get out because they have no resources, and they're infirm, or they're there to take care of somebody else. So one of the things I've been saying all along with this is light brings hope, and hope keeps people alive. And maybe that's grandiose, I don't know, but I'm sticking to it, because I do believe that, you know, living in darkness has its own stuff wrapped around it. And when I walk into those basements of the apartment buildings that are destroyed above, and walking through some of those apartments where we could get, and seeing a buffet in a living room that's not very much different from the buffet that I have in my living room in Duluth, Minnesota, and the plates are still in the buffet, and the pictures are still stuck in the little cracks between the glass and the wood. And, you know, there's maybe a baby crib in the corner of another room, and there's shoes. It's just like unbelievable. And to be able to walk into the basements where people are living because everything above it is destroyed, the people that are still there, and know that we can offer them this is pretty powerful. So lots of, you know, the videos, there's lots of destruction that I saw, the trenches that are being dug in the wheat fields between the front line and Zaporizhzhia, which means that, you know, if the Ukrainian army has to retreat, the people I was just with are going to be under Russian occupation. And I think we all know what that means. So I don't know. Hopefully that gets at what you were asking, Annette.
Absolutely. We have a video that's actually on the New Vision website, and I'd like to have to cue that up if we could. It's a story video, a promotional video, but it's actually really, really well done. Thank you, Dick.
Frats Ukrainian капеллан.
Подарунки! Подарунки! Від Маріуполя! Виходьте, підходьте, люди добрі! Вітаємо вас!
Проходим. Доброго дня, мир вашему дому. Добрый. Обратите внимание, стояла флаг Украины. Да. Давайте сфотографируем.
Давайте. Ніна, йди, Люда, йди. Нас фотографирують. Ні, Люда, йди сюди.
Улыбайтесь, вас снимает скрытая камера.
Хорошо.
Иконы. Иконы.
Да.
I love that tribute at the end to John. What an amazing person to start this or have the invention and then send it on to do so much good. So, when do you think you're going to take your next trip to Ukraine, Dave? Oh. I have a feeling. Dave, can you hear me? I think I can't hear Dave. Is Dick in the room? I might have to go off and log back on again. I'm not sure here. Dave, can you hear me? I don't think so. Let's see here. Okay, everybody just hang tight here. You might be able to hear us. Can you guys give me a plus or anything in the chat if you can still hear us? Okay. No sound for Dave. Okay, but they can hear me. Again, so until we get Dave back here. Okay. Dave, let me see here. So again, everybody, while I get Dave back in here, maybe Dick can drop those links to the website. If you find it in your heart, you don't have to donate the entire $125, but we need you to we need you. They need lots of money. So no, but if you find it in your heart to donate just a little bit, it all accumulates, and then that money will go to the parts and pieces to pre-assemble, and then we'll get out to a group that Dave puts together, and they can get more lights to Ukraine. Okay, let me just let him. All right. I want to thank everybody in the audience today, too, for joining us today. And I'm not sure if Alina has joined us or not for this stream. She did have the link. But again, Alina was so integral in me meeting Dave. And then I've met Rustin and, of course, the other people that have been in the group today. I have again, in just a matter of a couple of weeks, met such amazing people. There's, just to give you an idea, hopefully I will have a guest soon that actually is a couple of researchers, and they're doing surveys of refugees from Ukraine that come to the United States. And it's specifically about the war trauma that they've experienced, so that while they're here, they can get the support that they need. They are, again, in Iowa, out of, I think it's University of Iowa. I have to look that up. But I'm hoping to get them on to give us a little more insight about what's happening in the United States as far as, our system helping. So, Dave, I think we got you back. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. And I have there we go. Awesome. Okay, I don't know if you heard I gave a little blurb about how you introduced me to the researchers for the that are doing the survey for the trauma, and she actually did write me back, and I have to get to her. She said she wants to talk about doing a stream, and yesterday one of our viewers gave me, it was during our Ukraine stream, another YouTube channel, and they do support refugees too. And there actually was an email. So I may be able to email them and connect them with the researchers also.
That'd be great.
Again, this is just, like you said, the opening, and let's go into that. I'd like to know, we didn't hear your answer about when you're going to go back to Ukraine or if you're going to go back. And then you did talk about the doors that have opened, and I can attest that our, Dick Dawson and Dunk, our channel owners, the doors that have opened for them also are just amazing. And I think being part of a YouTube community, everyone thinks, well, we're just watching a screen, but that's really not true. We meet amazing, amazing people. So if you want to go into that about your going back to Ukraine and then doors that have opened for you too, that would be a great story.
Yeah, I'm not sure when I'll go back. We're in the process of moving our family, and so that's going to take a little bit of time and energy. But probably in the fall. There'll be sometime in the fall. That's my hope. And as far as things that have opened up, the training the research that's being done in the States directly related to Ukrainian refugees, and then how that's going to inform, how that research will inform responses by the professionals to interact with the Ukrainian refugees in terms of trauma. But we're also working on putting together a program for the large chaplain network within Ukraine. There's a lot of chaplains in Ukraine, and they typically have been focused more on the military and the first responders, but they also are broader than that. They do interact with civilians. So we would just like to put something together that will and are working on putting something together that will put some more tools into their tool bag as they interact with people, and some of the the stories we've heard, because trauma it doesn't go away, and the generational trauma that's going to come out of this mess. Hopefully there can be some things that'll be addressed, and you won't take a chaplain and turn them into a licensed counselor, but at least they'll have some tools that they can help point people in the right direction. And connecting with a lot of the supplies that have gone over in the shipping containers are medical supplies. And my last trip over there, we were going hither and yon, and two of my friends interacted with a group of EMTs, and the last set of lights that went over that are on, well, they've been delivered. Yeah, they've been delivered, and they were part of one full pallet. So there were only about 8 boxes of lights, but the rest of the boxes were all medical supplies. So because of the connection that the guys made, they were able to reconnect with those EMTs who are over in the Zaporizhzhia region, and they were able to get them some of the medical supplies that were part of that one pallet. And now there's a full shipping container that's on its way to Zaporizhzhia that contains about 100 of the Ray of Life units, but also medical supplies, shoes, boots, clothing, and then the prepackaged rice meals. It's called Life Rice, that are very, very helpful for both the soldiers on the front line, but also civilians. We try to focus on civilians with the lights, but the soldiers that are living in the dugouts, I do know that there are some lights that have gone to them, and they've been greatly utilized. We've probably got more information back from soldiers than we have from civilians, but I don't. I think given the the people that interact with them, that's not a surprise to me. But so it's opened a lot of doors, as well as the networking and the connections just within the states. And I stood in front of a group of people in a very rural village that's not even on the map, and I said, my job is to tell the story. And I think the more people that hear the story and know what's actually happening over there, it's really important, because it's not a soccer match. It's a war, and the things that my eyes have seen were pretty hard to process.
We do, we're grateful to our YouTube community, and most of us who are, and our listeners are very aware of what's happening. We see direct video, things we can't share, and it's one of those things where I have to limit myself watching, because I have to stay focused. Otherwise, I get really, really down, and I have to say, you know what, this is what's going on, but I have to do my part to help. And I think that's where everybody's hearts and minds are in our community. When you said medics, I'm gonna myself and Dick will reach out. I think I told you about another Ukraine channel, Greg Terry. He's a pastor at Bethel Church in Pennsylvania. I'm wondering if somehow somebody hasn't crossed paths here and we just don't know about it. That would be really interesting, because of the can you tell us about the ministry organization that you get the lights to and they distribute? How did you meet them, and what's their part in this? You told us a little bit. I'd like to hear more about that.
The Mariupol Chaplains Battalion?
Yes, Mariupol Chaplains. Mm-hmm.
I don't know if Alina would have, she maybe mentioned Gennady Moshenko. He was a larger than life. I mean, a lot of the people probably have heard his name, the Ukrainians. So he's from Mariupol, and when Mariupol was taken over by the Russians, they relocated to Zaporizhzhia, and I'm not sure if exactly what had been being done in Mariupol prior to them relocating to Zaporizhzhia, but basically they have a warehouse, and there's just a number of volunteers. Some of them are chaplains, but not all of them. And every day they leave from the warehouse in Zaporizhzhia and go to various places and deliver whatever. I mean, one time I was there, they were offloading a box truck of beds that they were taking to Kherson after the dam broke, because people needed places to sleep, as well as food and whatever. I mean, their warehouse is it's always in motion. There's a lot of stuff there, but it doesn't stick around long, because it gets sent out where needed. And being able to have a little small part in that. But the guys that I interact with, again, through my friend Joel Burkham, and his staff member Vlad, who is located in the Republic of Moldova, he introduced me to a guy by the name of Vadim, and he was my initial contact. And now that has broadened, because I've spent time with them over there, and he took me I went with him to Zaporizhzhia the first time, and then we just put together a second experience where I was hoping I'd have some lights to pass out, and I did. So yeah, it's a network, and it's a network of good people who are giving a week a month. Those guys, they come together from Gostomel and Irpin and Kyiv, and there's another guy who's in Soroka, Moldova, and they go to Zaporizhzhia 1 week a month and volunteer, which is amazing to me. I mean, think about giving 1 week of a month every week. I mean, every month giving 1 week and going somewhere and spending time going into the conflict zone. We have our Kevlar vests on and our helmets, and off they go every day. Every day they do it. But those guys go down there once a week, and that's who I connected with. kind of, I don't know that they don't call themselves this, but I kind of call them the Kiev contingent of the Mariupol Chaplains Battalion. But there's people from many places who come together to serve with those guys and women. We were crossing the border from Ukraine into Moldova, and we had our jackets on with our chevrons, designating that we were part of the Chaplains Battalion. And one of the guys, Border Patrol guys, kind of got our attention, and he reached in his pocket and pulled out his chevron. And it was the same chevron we had on, the Mariupol Chaplains Battalion. Gave us a thumbs up, and we sat there for a while, and before we drove through, we waved and went through the border crossing. So they're an amazing group of people, and have been doing it. There's a backstory to it that I'm not sure I'm comfortable sharing at this point, but the backstory has brought this about, and those guys have been doing incredible work for over 2 years.
Yeah, we respect that. We don't ask anything because we do have people on that have, OPSEC, and there's just information we can't give out. So absolutely, we don't ask any of that. I'd like to recognize we have a couple of super chats. To our audience, that some of our guests are not real familiar with how YouTube works and all of that. But Dave, people can actually give directly while we're live on the channel. And our channel owner and producer today, Dick Dawson, he donated $5. And please donate to Ray of Life, our amazing guests, if you can. The link is pinned. And then another one of our listeners, they exist. He donates for solar lights. Thanks. Donate page wants. Oh, the donation page wants information, and they want to do PayPal. So of course, if you do, go ahead, Dave.
I sent you a link to the Give. It's called Give Minnesota. It's a platform that people use in Minnesota. That would be one way they could give. I sent that link earlier.
Yes, and that's
I need to step away for just 1 minute.
Oh, sure.
Okay, I'll be right back.
Okay. So, yes, that link at the top, they do want some information, partly because this is a charitable organization that does keep track of, tax information. If people make really large donations, they can deduct it. But of course, if you want to donate via PayPal, we definitely, earmark it, just something like hashtag solar lights, anything, and we'll certainly get that money to them for sure. So, and super chats will go to the organization when that money comes in later on too. So, and thank you everybody for donating. Let me see if I'll get our Shills link up there. So I hope everybody has been enjoying this program today. I honestly, when I talked to Dave, we had probably an hour-long phone call, and we kind of just had to wrap it up because it just went this way and this way with so many wonderful stories. For me, and I think all of the listeners know that, especially through people like Rick the Ukrainian, people do tend to get introduced to each other, and they get to know each other. And I have a feeling that some of these people have crossed paths before, which would be really, really neat. And they just don't know who anybody else knows, but they're like, oh, I know them. So we'll look into that. I bet that would be a really fun story too. So Dave, we do have the link. It's actually, we have a chat in YouTube. I know you can't see, and it's actually permanently stuck to our chat, so people can click on it because it is a charitable donation. They actually can they're asked for information, and so we're our producer Dick today. He said that he will, any of the money that comes in any other route will donate to your organization too. So you'll get that.
Again, 100% goes to build lights.
Mm-hmm. And when I was talking with Dave on the phone, he emphasized that because I think that the war has been going on so long, and we've seen people that are opportunists and aren't sincere. And I could tell you one thing, that this is I did click around and I checked all this out, and this organization is completely bona fide, and they're doing amazing work. So one of the things that we haven't touched on the unit specifically, how long do these units last? And is there anything that could interrupt their usage? Like if the battery goes out, can they get more batteries? How do you deal with that? Or do you know of that happening?
No, I think the first years ago, the first rounds of them were a different battery than is used now. These are actually batteries that are utilized in the Tesla, and they're much better than what was being used before. And some of the original units, Rustin, I was but in April I was out in West Virginia, and he had mentioned to me that some of the units that have been in Kenya for 8 to 10 years are still being used. And this is maybe the third or fourth kind of iteration of the Ray of Life, the current one. So I mean, I don't know. I mean, these batteries are better, they're newer, and it'll be interesting to see how long they last. But I did mention today during the build that one of the batteries, I held it up because I pulled this unit out before the build, and I held it up and I said, I gave this to my neighbor because some of the LED strips needed to have some soldering done to them. And I was wondering if he could do that because I didn't have the equipment, and he does. He's one of those guys that does everything. And I gave him a battery so he could check the lights, and both of us forgot about that. And that was back in May of 2023. And just earlier this in May, it was in May sometime, he came walking over to my house. He said, "Hey, I found this in my garage." And there's the battery that I gave him literally a year ago. And I took it and I plugged the LED strip in, and it lit the LED strip up. So it had been sitting fallow for a year, and it still lit the LED strip up. So we don't know what the shelf life is on these, but how long will a Tesla run? I mean, do they produce Teslas thinking, well, they'll probably run for 5, 4, 10, whatever. As long as it's, not submerged and, it's in a waterproof case, the battery is. The LED lights, I mean, I don't know that they'll ever wear out. They're the same LED strips that you kind of can put underneath your cupboards and plug in. And the solar panel, it's pretty bulletproof. The whole thing is pretty bulletproof. So I think they have a very long shelf life, personally. But I guess that remains to be seen. But we do have some of the original units, which I think anybody involved in this would agree, were probably not as good component-wise, that are still working. And these have much better components because it's just, it's over the years, it's just improved. Things have improved. The components have improved. So we think they'll last a long time. And I don't know, hopefully they won't need them for a long time.
I think the battery sitting in a garage in an uncontrolled environment is a really good test. It was an unofficial research project there. a
little nervous to plug it in, and lo and behold, it lit the LED strip up.
That's great. So how did you said that some of the parts were donated by, I think you said 3M. How did, I don't know if you know this, we didn't have time to ask Rustin, but do you know how these businesses, how they were approached to donate the parts?
I think it was just contacts. I mean, Rustin had a contact that had a contact, and it was because we had this conversation about who it actually was when I was just out there, and it was a 3M employee who was at a higher level, and and they donated the shiny. We just call it shiny paper. That's the technical term, shiny paper. They donated lots of it to New Vision, and we're still using it. Located in Minnesota. It's a Minnesota company. Started in Two Harbors, Minnesota, and now has been in the Minneapolis area for many, many, many years. But yeah, it was great because it's a needed component, and some of the LED lights earlier had been donated too. Not anymore, but we're trying to do the best we can do with the resources that we have.
And you're doing amazing work. This is probably one of the most interesting projects I've seen done. A lot of money goes towards, getting, like you said, getting medical supplies and trucks and things like that. And I think this is the first time that our viewers have actually been able to see or interact with somebody, with grassroots effort to get these units over there. One of our viewers made a comment, and I know, Dave, you can't see this, and I'd just like to pass it along to you. Tammy for UA would be Tammy for Ukraine. Another great stream. I really appreciate the dedication, getting these grassroots projects highlighted for this community. That pretty much sums it up as far as my goal is to get amazing guests with stories that nobody's ever heard, which do connect more to Ukraine and why it's so important that we support. I do want to put this out there. If any of you have questions for Dave, please go ahead and put them in the chat, and he can take some of your questions. Stephen Walsh, thank you so much for your donation. Dave, we have a longtime viewer, Stephen Walsh. He actually did donate directly to your organization via the link for the Ray of Light box. So thank you. And we've had others. I saw them earlier. So you are getting some donations in. Any little things, any little bit, will help, because it'll go towards getting all those parts and pieces, pre-production, and then the kits go to Dave and he gets groups to assemble them. So if there's any, let me scroll through here and see if I want to recognize you. Dave Worley, one of our other channel hosts, is here. Welcome, Dave. Thank you so much for tuning in. And thank you, everybody, for coming and seeing us today. Let me see here if we had any other questions from our viewers. And then one of the things that you talked about, the lights evolving, getting better. Do you have anything in your mind that you would like to see added to the units or to improve right now?
I don't think so. We have made a couple changes even from what I showed, because we have I don't know if I packed everything that we built today, and they've already been loaded in my truck by my handy helpers apparently. But we added an LED, a small LED strip attached directly to the battery that can plug right into the battery with no fuss or muss. And then a person can actually walk around with the battery and use it as a flashlight, or they can use it as a night light. Because the small one in the middle of the two long ones, we have kind of said, if you want to use a night light, if that makes you more comfortable to have a night light, you can use that. But we're now adding that directly right onto the battery. And the other thing that we're doing is we're getting rid of the fourth attachment on the 4-cord splitter, and it's being configured with the USB port. So there have been just little kind of things that I would never think of, because I know my brain doesn't work that way. That the team in West Virginia continues to refine things and trying to create a little bit more space in the box. The original idea was, can we get a VF100 water filter to fit inside the box as well? And we haven't figured that out yet, because it's a pretty big, when it's in the packaging, it's a pretty big package, because we're not necessarily going 1-to-1, but we've also passed out 300 VF100 water filters, which is a WHO approved water filter, and those are going to people who who don't have access to clean water. It's a bucket filter, but it's also a filter that you can connect directly to a water bottle and get some clean water out. So it's just little tweaks here and there. Creating the QR code that would actually show people how to set it up. It's pretty intuitive. It's not, if I could figure out how to set it up, I think 99.995% of the world can figure out how to set it up. So it's pretty intuitive, but we put that on there just to, allow people to see how to set it up if they don't know. And they obviously they have to have a phone that can scan a QR code. But that video has been viewed a lot of times. So
I was looking in the chat. One of our viewers, Sweet, had a question about the reflective material, but I think that kind of goes back to the solar panel. Can you tell us a little bit about the solar panel unit?
Yeah, I can pull. I didn't show one of those. I can pull it out and show you what it looks like. They're also manufactured in China. You can't get anything, from what I'm told. This is the solar unit, and then it's got the cord that just plugs directly into the battery, and then you just set it it charges best at a 45-degree angle, and about 6 to 8 hours of direct sunlight will fully charge the battery, and you can go either way on that. So it works, and then it's got a USB port on top too, so someone could charge their cell phone directly from the solar panel if they chose to.
Oh, that's a nice feature. That absolutely.
I've done that. I'll go out that door and you bet.
You've done that when you've lost power in Minnesota?
No, not when I lost power. I just wanted, because I wanted to say, what, I use this. It works. I charged my cell phone off the solar panel. I haven't charged my cell phone off the battery, but these batteries, they'll get to 20% if over time, if they keep losing, over time, the power apparently will go somewhere. I'm not sure where it goes, but it'll get to 20% and then it just shuts down. So there's always 20% power in the battery. And if there isn't sun, or if it sits for a while, somebody can plug it in and they'll still be able to utilize the lights.
Mm-hmm. When I was looking, doing some research, I did see that these units are available like to survivalists too, right? They do sell directly to the public.
No.
They don't. Okay, so this is specifically for the units to go to Ukraine and other countries.
Yeah, this is specifically utilized by communities that don't have electricity.
Okay, because I know on some survivalist websites they have units, but they certainly don't look as effective as this one. There's
other things out there, and we've got a little bit of pushback. Like, why should I pay $125 when I can get another product that is great? It's a great product, but it's just different. Mm-hmm. Well, you can do that. But this is sort of, I don't know if you'd call it an integrated system, but we actually get these to Ukraine. They actually get into the hands of people who distribute them directly to Ukrainian families. And we're not charging for that, but we can do that. And that's a miracle story in itself, how I came upon Lee Schumann, who I hope you can have on this show sometime, and hand in hand logistics. And it's
I would love to have you tell that story. We have people that joined throughout the stream. So just to catch them up a little bit, this is, my guests are, they make solar lights and they do have a battery. and they send them to Ukraine. The organization is the main organization is New Vision Renewable Energy, and the unit itself is called Ray of Life. And the units themselves, for $125, they can pre-produce all of the parts. They put them together, and then Dave finds organizations, or organizations contact him and said, yes, we can assemble these at no cost. This donation actually does cover shipping. They've got the entire logistics and network figured out to get the parts and pieces from the actual place that in West Virginia put together, get them out to Dave. Then Dave gets them assembled into his truck, and then he has a way to get them on shipping containers. And there's another person that does that. They get them to Ukraine, and they have a distribution ministry in Ukraine that gets them to anybody who needs them. So again, any donation would be really, really appreciated for this. So Dave, do you want to go ahead and tell us that story that you just mentioned?
Sure. We had the cart before the horse, but in faith, we just started building these lights, and then I began the phone call trail of trying to find a way to get them to Ukraine. And I found a couple organizations who were doing regular shipments, and this was probably a year ago. Yeah, a year ago, and they were still doing regular shipments, but they were very much tapering off. And one organization said, we're probably not going to do any more shipments. Another organization said, we might do one or two more, but it was I hadn't found a sure thing. So I was in July of 2023. I was in Zaporizhzhia, and I was in the headquarters of the Chaplains Battalion, the Mariupol Chaplains Battalion. And after we spent a day out in the villages, interacting with people and serving them, I asked Alexander if I could talk with him. So my friend arranged a translator to FaceTime in, and I said something, and we just translated via FaceTime. And I asked Alexander if he ever received any shipments from the United States, and he said yes. And I said, great. And he said, you need to talk to Anatoly. So I said, okay. And so I called. He gave me his phone number in Seattle, Washington. And then I talked to Anatoly, and he said, well, after a really great conversation, he said, you need to talk to Rachel in Auburn, Washington. So I called Rachel in Auburn, Washington, had another great conversation, 3 or 4 great conversations. And she said, you need to talk to Sheila. And he said, Sheila is somewhere in Minnesota. And I'm like, what? So, and Sheila connected me to Hand in Hand Logistics in Isanti, Minnesota. So it went from Chisinau, Moldova to Kyiv, to Zaporizhzhia, back to Kyiv, to Seattle, Washington, to Auburn, Washington, to suburban St. Paul, Minnesota, to Isanti, Minnesota. And Lee Schumann, God bless him, had a pole barn on his property, but the man built a loading dock. He built a loading dock on his property, and he started shipping sea containers over to Ukraine. And to date, he's sent 25 or 26. I think the one that went out last week was maybe 26, for sure 25, but maybe 26 sea containers to Ukraine since the war started.
That's mind blowing. I don't know if anybody, I think most of us have probably walked through a container or seen them. Those units are gigantic, and to have those things filled, it's just amazing.
It's a high cube, so it's not the really, really big ones.
Oh, okay.
They're smaller ones, but it's a high cube container, I guess would be the actual technical term for it. But yeah, there's a
That's
lot.
still a huge amount of space.
A lot of pallets and a lot of boxes full of medical supplies, and he sends firefighting equipment over. He was actually just up in Lutzen Friday, and up in Grand Marais, picking up retired firefighting equipment that had been replaced and was then donated to Hand in Hand. And he's going to be headed over with a couple suburban Minneapolis fire chiefs over to Cherkasy, and they're going to deliver a high cube container of firefighting gear. It's already on its way over there. He'll meet it over there, and then also do a little bit of training. Have the guys do some training. So yeah, incredible organization, incredible ministry, incredible man. He is a great guy.
That's another thing that we haven't heard about is firefighting equipment going over there. I would love to meet him too. That's just amazing.
Yeah. It's the big mystery was how you going to get it over there, and that mystery has been solved. And these are getting into people's hands. They're not sitting somewhere. Everyone that we've sent over so far, with the exception of 2, because somehow the batteries disappeared. I have no idea how that could happen, but every one of them has been passed out. That's been sent over to Ukraine. Every one of them.
So remember that story you told me about the what happened in customs where the units sat for a month and were able to be picked up. That's and again, I'm laughing and smiling, but this is a serious issue as far as, the amount of things that are needed to get to Ukraine, and the fact that you have logistics and shipping to Ukraine. That seems to be the number one question that we see people say. I have this, I have that. How do we get it there? So you guys have solved probably one of the biggest hurdles, and the fact that you can get it there, get it through customs and all of that. But can you tell that one story to our viewers about what happened with
big bad Dave? I'm gonna do this. In July, I flew into Chisinau, and I've flown into Chisinau, Moldova many, many times, but I never flew into Chisinau, Moldova with 32 Ray of Life kits and 35 VF100 water filters. And I had documentation, but apparently it wasn't the correct documentation, and the Moldovan customs seized them. And I left the customs office there at the airport in Chisinau about 3 a.m, and we left as friends. But it took 3 months, and I have no idea why they kept them. I have no idea why it took so long, and I had to pay a pretty hefty fine, and really don't know why. That never really was told to me why. It was just described as protocol. So, but those 32 and 35 filters found their way to the Bakhmut region, and they wouldn't have gone there. They wouldn't have gone to Bakhmut if I'd have gotten out of the airport with them. And did I kick myself around for a long, long time for that one. But they went to Bakhmut, and they wouldn't have gone to the Bakhmut region if they would have stayed with me. They would have gone, to southeast.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm hoping that was where they should have been in the first place.
Things worked out. So the one thing that we didn't talk about, just to kind of jump out to a different topic, about the water filters. Is this a project, or does a water filter go with the unit in every case, or how does that work?
Well, it's it would be ideal if they could. I mean, when I passed them out when I was over there in March, it was almost 1-to-1. So if you got a Ray of Life, you got a VF100, but the packaging has changed. I'm using a different box because, frankly, the box that I was shipping originally was getting really, really hard to carry out of my basement 5 times and back into my basement. So I started using smaller boxes, and what I would originally do was I would put 21, I could fit 21 lights in the box, and I would be able to put in 21 water filters. So when somebody opened up a box, not every one of them, but many of them, they'd have 21 lights and 21 water filters. But we have more Ray of Life kits in there than we do in Ukraine than we do water filters. And part of that is because we started with the water filters a little bit later because, you know, when I was over there, it took longer for that to kind of pop up. But it's not always one-to-one, you know, like the last shipment that went over, now I'm doing 11 lights in a box, and I can't do 11 lights and 11 water filters. It's just not possible space-wise. So I'm asking that if possible, they be passed out one-to-one. But the reality is fewer civilians need the water filters and more soldiers need the water filters. So those guys on the ground over there, I'm not going to sit in my rocking chair in Duluth, Minnesota and say, you need to do this. I'm going to say, here's this, use it as you see fit. And I know, you know, a lot of water filters have gone to civilians in some of the rural villages that have been hit pretty hard because either if the Russians, excuse me, if they had a presence there, many times they'll poison the wells or the, you know, stuff from the bombs have leaked into the water table. Excuse me a minute. I came back from Ukraine with just a thunderous cough, and it's been 2 months, and it's still there. But so yeah, we're hoping that the water filters are as useful as the Ray of Life. But I do know a lot of the filters have gone to the front line.
Where are you getting the filters from? Or that's not an assembly project, is it? You just buy the filters?
Oh, they come prepackaged from an organization, a great group of people in Michigan called Business Connect, and they're a WHO approved water filter. You can look them up on Amazon. So it's literally, you look at the picture and it tells you how to put them together. I didn't feel like we should put them together, and so we just send them over as I get them on my front porch, and then they're assembled by the recipient over in Ukraine. And they're good for 100,000 gallons or 400,000 liters, which is a staggering number.
It is. I don't know about the water system and the infrastructure in Ukraine. I pretty much all our viewers, because I've been with this channel for a couple of years, they know I have been to Russia. And one of the things, and I doubt that it's much different, that Russia is a lot of homes are served by artesian wells. Right. And one of the things that I've thought about with all this environmental awfulness that's going on over there, number one, the destruction, with the dam and the water and the contamination there, but also I don't know how much of their chemical weapons and dirty bombs and things like that, just the way nature works, things filter down, go through the ground, and inevitably may end up in the water system. But I haven't heard about poisoning of wells. What do you know about that?
I don't know much. I just know that the guys that I spent time with said that has happened. That's all I really know. I mean, I didn't need to filter water from a poisoned well. I just know that they said that it has happened, and that's, it's destroying whatever. A very wise and learned man who I spent time with said this to me, and maybe I'm going out on a limb here I shouldn't go out on, but he said the it's not about conquest, it's about destruction.
Scorched earth. Yep.
And that's the reality. So the stores aren't open. I mean, so many people, Romania, Moldova, Ukraine, drink bottled water, and you can't run to the store and buy a 4-liter bottle of water or whatever. So I asked before we started buying them. I asked 2 people on the ground in Ukraine, would these be helpful? Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I can completely see it. And for those of you, I mean, if you have a well in the United States, it may not be that accessible, and we have codes. When I lived in California, I actually had well water, and it was a real deal trying to get access to that well. But in Eastern Europe, these wells, they're usually in the backyards. They're in somebody's backyards. They're very near the properties that they serve, and they're super accessible. You can get in there where the pump assembly is, and yeah, I don't think it would take much to poison a well at all.
in the rural villages, the wells are in the common areas, and people haul their water. So,
Wow.
we hope they're helpful, and I know the bulk of the first set of VF-100s that went over was shortly after the dam was hit, and I know a lot of them went to that area so that people could filter the water and drink it.
Mm-hmm. I think everybody saw me wince a little bit. A comment, KKSGG wrote that she's seen reports that the Russians, if there's access, can throw bodies into wells and contaminate them. Just the horror.
That's what I'm exactly. And when
okay.
the Russians are contaminating the wells, that's what they're doing.
Unbelievable. So we've got not quite 15 minutes left in the stream, and I'm kind of taking a look through if we have any questions here. A lot of people are commenting, yep, they know how those wells are being poisoned.
Yeah, and we haven't highlighted the VF-100, in anything, because basically the second round of 100, we just bought them because we knew they needed them. We didn't fundraise for them; we just bought them. But there's also we're asking for $25 per VF-100, and I think you can buy them off Amazon. I think they're $29. So if anybody wants to contribute for VF-100s, because I'm actually ordering. I tried to call our contact on Friday and I couldn't get a hold of them, but we're going to get 100 more and send them over with these 40 lights and the 30 more that are going to be produced. The next shipment are going to have 100 VF-100 water filters included.
And what's your unit cost on those?
We're asking people to donate $25.
Okay. So for those, I see there's a few people that have just joined. And again, thank you so much for being here. This is incredible information. And I haven't seen a stream like this done yet. Dave, I can't thank you enough. This isn't the end. I'm just thanking you for being here and all that you do and just opening my eyes and the viewers' eyes to everything. We do have a donation link at the top of the chat. The Ray of Light units are $125 per unit. You don't have to donate all of that. If you can, it would be wonderful. And the water filters are $25. That anything to help this organization would be amazing, because there's, again, just to kind of go back, they are helping youth in the United States because the parts are pre-assembled in West Virginia, and they actually have a youth sponsor youth group. And it's not just youth; these are children that have aged out of the foster care system. And our viewers, Dave, a lot of them know that I have actually worked with the foster system in California. I was a court-appointed educational advocate, and I have seen what happens to these kids when grade school, high school, and they do age out. They're really lost. And West Virginia has lost a lot of opportunities for people, for everyone in the last decade, much less the youth. So this organization gets these youth in, it gives them some direction, gives them something to feel positive about, and they can actually see that what they're doing, the units that they help pre-assemble, go into the hands of people who really, really, really need them. So this is helping the United States, it's helping the world, it's helping Ukraine. It's an amazing project.
The young people who are involved in this, this is being utilized as a job training program, and it's not heavy duty stuff, but at least it's something that a 18-year-old, 19-year-old can put on a piece of paper that said, I did this, and I showed up every day and I did it. And, if they want to get into the story of the ray of life, they certainly can, but it's a big deal. And, I was just in West Virginia, as I mentioned earlier, in April, and I met the people who were the young people who were involved in doing the pre-assembly, and let's just say that was a little bit of an emotional moment too, for all of us.
I completely believe you. And in fact, I was sharing with a friend of mine last night about you as a guest, and I was saying that exactly what you said. What's the first thing you put on a resume as a kid? Maybe your babysitting job. But the most important thing is, did you show up on time? Did you show up every day you were needed? That's huge, because that's the first thing people look at. And then whatever job you go from there, whether it's retail or fast food or anything, it's hugely important, especially when somebody can look the organization up and it's verified that you were there and you participated in this. Dave, one of the things that I always tell everybody on every program that we do, the best way to feel good about your life and what you do is do good for other people. And so that's giving these kids a really great start. And the story that you told about the young man signing the box and then going into the hands, and you could see it actually going where it was supposed to go. It's such a small thing, but such a powerful story. And I would love to see, and I didn't see it on the website, but is there an area where they have the stories of these kids and how they benefited from the program, from the lights?
No, probably not. I think, you're wrapped up in all kinds of legal stuff.
Oh.
Telling the story of anybody, like who's in that situation. But, Rustin's, the New Vision, the website, the nvre.org, has a lot of information about the foster care programs. I mean, he's building a tiny village. There's a lot of information on there. This is just one part of what he does, what New Vision does, but it's a pretty darn big part of it. So yeah, it's a really good backstory to the bottom line being getting lights to people in basements and areas where there is no electricity in Ukraine. That's the bottom line. That's what we focus on. But the backstory is pretty phenomenal.
And just so you know, our viewers, Dave can't see the stream right now. He can't see the chat, but we have been putting the New Vision links into the chat so people can click on them along with the donation link. So the information is definitely getting out there, and we'll have that information available in the stream for those who watch the stream afterwards. So we have, again, it's New Vision Renewable Energy is the organization that started this out of West Virginia, and they're the light is called the Ray of Life unit. It has the battery, it has the solar panel, it has the USB to charge your phone. It's an amazing little unit. And for those of us who did just join, I found Dave through Alina. And for those of you who watched our stream a couple of weeks ago, Alina and Martha Hulsoff. Alina is the refugee who Martha helped bring to the United States, and she actually helped put the QR code information and design that for the Ray of Life. So this community has just got branches and arms of wonderful things everywhere.
Yeah.
It's just
she and 4 other Ukrainians in Sioux County, Iowa, actually put 6 of these units together, and the last, and then we had a Ukrainian refugee who was in an international school in Minneapolis, where I went down there, and a different church in New Jersey sponsored, much like the California church. And she put a unit together and translated notes that were written on the inside of the box in Ukrainian. So when a Ukrainian opens it up, they see, they're Ukrainian on the inside of the box. And then the last 30 that the California church has sponsored will be put together in Morgantown, West Virginia, by the Ukrainian refugee community there, through a contact that Rustin introduced me to, and that both Rustin and I have. So it's crazy. It's just crazy, all the things that have bubbled up out of this little green box.
We have a viewer question. JPH in the chat said, can you set up schemes like this in other countries? The Ray of Life assembling in UK, Poland, different countries. Do you have other countries involved?
Oh, we haven't, and that would be a really big question, because you mentioned the term grassroots, and I'll tell you what, it doesn't get any more grassroots than New Vision on Chestnut Ridge in West Virginia, in Appalachia, West Virginia. So there's people have used the scale word with me and with Rustin, and we're trying to wrap our heads around where this could potentially go, honestly. So there's nothing else in any countries. If we were able to get the components and the kits somewhere, it would be very easy to lead a build or train somebody to lead a build, and then they could then take it and start doing it elsewhere. But we'd have to get all of this stuff to the UK or to wherever. And is that possible? Probably. Is that something that I know how to do right now? No. But maybe there's a way that it could happen. I'm not going to say that. I don't think we shut the door on anything that is out there, because the bottom line is to get these lights into the hands of people who need them.
Mm-hmm. It kind of does make more sense to ship a complete product if you're going to do shipping costs somewhere. Right. So, but you never know what the future is going to hold. So, how, to our viewers, if somebody had a group and they say, hey, I belong to a church, I have a group, I want to do this, how do we go about getting them in touch with you? Do you want to do it through me?
Yeah, I think you can post my email some way. People could access me via email. I mean, every place that I've gone that we've actually done a build, I've driven to. And, have Tundra, will travel, but, like driving to California, that was not an option. Everything's been in Iowa or Minnesota that I've driven to. We did mail some to Michigan. It's a community in the Lower Peninsula. But if they're in the region, if they're in the Iowa, Minnesota region, I'll do whatever I can do to make it work. If they're outside of that region, it would probably be a sponsorship situation, much like we did here today. In Louisville. But I think you can. I'm comfortable with you. Unless you tell me that I shouldn't, Annette. I'm comfortable with you having my email on there, that people could reach out to me and we could just begin dialogue. I'm going to be a little busy for the next 2 weeks.
With your move.
Yeah, but past that, I'm pretty good about contacting people and staying in touch. Like you said, I responded. I mean, that's kind of how I roll. So I'll do the best I can do.
And again, when Dave talks about sponsorship, because of the logistics involved in putting these together and getting all the parts and pieces shipped, the money component is huge, because when they can actually, have the money to put the parts and pieces together to get to the groups, which are mostly in the Midwest here, every piece of this is important. The money part, the building part. So if it's not available right now, please donate, because every dollar that you donate will actually go to getting these the pre-assembly done and the units into the hands of a group that will put them together. So we're almost out of time. I always give my guests the last word. Like, what would you like everybody to know as the last thought before we finish the stream?
This is a call and response, and I'm not going to get the response that every Ukrainian would give me when I say this, but Slava Ukraini.
Heroyam Slava.
Slava. Okay. I did get a response.
Oh, you know what? We say that all the time on our streams. Absolutely. It's wonderful. And thank you, Dave. And please pass along my thank you to the other guests. And I'm sure I'll be in touch with Rustin. Oh, sweet. It's Ray of Life. It's the Ray of Life unit, to clarify. And it's a light unit. I kept getting that mixed up. So Dave, I hope I see you again. And if you sounds like you have another guest that wants to come on, or that could come on, and that would be absolutely wonderful. Thank you to all our viewers. Thank you to the team behind us, Shayna, BME, Crazy Cat, and of course, Mr. Dawson, for all of your production, and my mentor. All right, Dave, thank you so much. And I will be in touch, and we will see you soon.
Thank you.
See you later, everybody.